Hi everyone. So it's Thursday and my teaching week is done. Hallelujah. I've just made a stir fry with tofu and vegetables and ginger and garlic and green chili. I have some leftover dal, chana dal from last night. So in a little bit I'll put them together and heat up the rice. Yeah, teaching can be a miracle. I had a methods workshop from 3 to 5 today, and we talked all about thematic coding and analysis in qualitative research, since many of them are doing interviews. I started off with an article of my own demonstrating that that's the end product after you've done all of this groundwork and how that ends up looking. And that much of what we do in research-related work, whether project reports or articles, research papers, is synthesis and not merely sourcing from our primary data, sort of ad hoc, but instead really working on units of analysis from theory, from a conceptual framework as well, whether we build them up from our qualitative research data or kind of create a template that we bring to bear on and through the analysis. So yeah, it's late in semester and they've become quite advanced. I don't know how many students are taught these things in other areas of their studies. I like to make things explicit and applicable in my teaching. So this unit is 4 hours a week. It's quite a load. There were a few students missing today because, I don't know, it was really cold and windy, but even one student who had the flu turned up. I wonder if she should have stayed at home though, but that's how dedicated she is. And I myself have had a very long day. I woke up ultra early again. Well, before I get to that topic, let me just say I did go and have a look at a property yesterday that the property manager that has been managing this property from the agency that I've rented off for 20 years, right? I spoke about this in the last video. He sort of came good and decided to let me view a property before it actually has its official viewing. It's in Chippendale. It's a single terrace house. It's got a backyard and driveway off street, and it's got quite small rooms and high ceilings. The kitchen is pretty pokey and not really up to scratch. It does sort of remind me of the first place I lived when I first moved to Sydney, that is 20 years ago. And that was a couple of roads up from here in Fowler Street, Camperdown. It was in Denison Street. And I reiterated that to him as a kind of way to underscore just how long I've been with Richardson and Wrench Newtown. For me, the concern also is that because of my change of name and other details, that if I go somewhere with a completely different agency, they're not going to be able to make sense of my rental track record because it's under a different name. And it's already hard out there in the market, even when you earn, on paper, $180,000 a year. That's before tax, of course. There's a hell of a lot of tax that's taken out. It would be far preferable for me to move after submitting my early July tax return. Then I would have a pool of funds to make this work. I'm trying not to get too stressed about it. Something will happen. I've got plan A, plan B, plan C. I'm looking at other properties on Saturday, different kinds of properties, not like the one I just mentioned, which I think is, it's got space problems, and I mean it's well situated in Chippendale, but it's overpriced. But that's the kind of reality of the market now, especially in the inner west, but not only. And yeah, got to see some more properties, including studios and one-bedroom units and stuff like that. For me, it's a real upheaval. I went and saw my GP this morning and explained how I feel more stressed perhaps than the last time this happened. And it did happen. It's what prompted me to move here. It was with another Richardson and Wrench property. And I managed to move in 3 weeks, but I was in a kind of better financial position. And I suppose I was just like, my modus operandi was just do, because there were a lot of things going on in my life, including my mother's first hospitalization and me going over there and subsequently anticipating further kinds of episodes or eventualities. And so I just thought, I just got to move immediately so I've got somewhere that I can begin semester from. It was just a couple of weeks shy of the beginning of semester 1, 2019. And effectively, yeah, the first kind of, I guess, 6 months to a year of that renting that property, which I rented, well, this property, for 7 years, I was pretty much coming and going between Sydney and Perth, and then finally in the last 6 months of 2020, moved over and to Perth and rented a flat there as well as renting this one. So for some reason, I took a lot of things in my stride. I was working on a really hyper energy. I was younger as well. It was a previous stage of my life, and my doctor thinks that I'm more sensitive to things now, and that's one way of describing it. But also, work is really, really demanding, and it can still be really fulfilling. Like, I started off saying about the methods workshop and the project unit, but it consumes a lot of my time and planning, and I typically get home after, property viewings have already happened during the week. So weekends are the only window of opportunity. So yes, I embrace the fact that it must happen, but I do have a few kind of plan Bs or Cs or whatever, and one of them is that I could just vacate, right? And I could go and spend a month in a place that's called South Pacific Private, and it's all about wellness, mental health. They look after everything, your physical health, your diet. You get on-call psychological support as well. I really feel like in many ways this situation has just reminded me how kind of pushed to the limit I'm feeling. I don't have anyone that can do my self-care for me. I've often been the person in a self-care, other care role. I'm just learning to do that for myself, and then I get this eviction. And I'm not in the best of financial states either, so these questions roll around and around in my mind, and they kind of cut short my sleep, and I run on adrenaline and cortisol, and that's not good for your health. So I'm seeing the signs, so I got him to write a referral. Hopefully they'll get an intake officer to call me. I once contemplated this before. It's a very good setup there, and I have private health, luckily, and it might only cost $500 for a month. And that would just take me out, of the constant demands around me, allow me to have a reset, and also just put on hold the urgency of finding somewhere new, because I perhaps could put some of my stuff in storage and obviously throw away a lot of things that I don't need anymore, which is what one does when one vacates and moves anyway. But it might take the pressure off of finding the right place. It's tough. And let me say as well, like, there's no guarantee that even someone with my income will just land somewhere. And that's independent of the extra layer of a new name, changed identity markers, and not having a track record under them. Today, besides seeing the GP, I got my New South Wales photo ID application lodged, and I got the whole photo taken and everything like that. So that's a really important step. It did cost $116. Everything costs in life, but it's essential for me to then move to have all the primary documents and supporting documents to be able to apply online for a working with children safety check. because I do have a casual job outside of my main academic job, and it's working for an organisation that, no secrets here, it's called Samson, Survivors and Support Mates Support Network. They have allowed me time for this because of all my document changes through transition, but it's gotten to a point where we're running quite late with it, and their board needs this certification. Of course, I'm not a risk to children. I myself, as a child, was put at risk, but we have to go through this process, and it's been a long road in just building up all the documents necessary. A litany, a virtual litany. So as you can see, I'm often doing things on the run, and I honestly just want a bit of stillness at this stage of my life, and I'm getting on in years as well. In October I turned 55. I have a lot of goals still, not related to transition specifically, but of making other changes in my life. Maybe this is what I'm really hoping, studying a graduate diploma in counselling, and on top of that a master's, probably in social work qualifying. I have a lot of lived experience. I have peer support experience now. I contemplated doing clinical psychology, but that's a longer term thing. In terms of career change, it might be more instructive, even though it seems strange to be doing a master's after years earlier having done a PhD, for me to get the credentials to be able to work as a practitioner and work with people in community that I already do to some extent through peer support, but at a high level kind of thing. Any sector, any job or professional area that we work in has, especially when it's being assistive, it has its toll and potential for break, for burnouts. And I'm a realist about that, but I really think I should, also take seriously this resource of South Pacific Private, to do this reset and to just sort of get back on track, because I'm not so much behind the wheel, where you're steering things yourself, but constantly having to respond to situations, and I want to smooth that out. We live in a very complicated state now in the world. We have so many multiple challenges and constant war and things looming. I don't want to focus just on myself, but obviously in these videos often I'm giving updates about my life. I went through a process of criminal injury claim. That was pretty grueling. We're still waiting for it to be filed and everything. It will take up to a year to see what the outcome is. Yeah, but I do need to have a kind of still point in my life to get back on track, because I feel so pulled in so many different directions. Of course, there's been good things as well. My writing, fiction, poetry, the things that keep me really excited about life. But I want to go further, and I want to have the energy for it, and I want to have the physical health. One GP online said, resilience is great, but why do we prioritize resilience over self-care? In fact, I don't think that you can be resilient without the self-care. But I've done so much in my life where I'm kind of jumping into situations to care for others. And, I don't hold it against my mother in this instance. It was several years. But for some people, I'm the go-to point. And I have to learn to set boundaries and really prioritize my own trajectory. Not at the exclusion of working with others by any means, but really centering. So these things are conscious to me because I do fortnightly therapy. I have done a lot of yoga in my life, which has been really beneficial. But in South Pacific Private, you can do yoga every day. Everything is just very well resourced in a beautiful setting. And importantly, no one from the outside can contact you. And that to me is so tantalizing, really. yeah. Anyway, I'll update if the intake officer actually gives me a call. Um, it could be the best outcome. You know, whether I find a place in the immediate term and then just pause and then go in for a month, or if I can't find a place in 30 days, store my stuff, clear out this place, get out, and then go for a month and then come back to that issue when I leave. And there's a transition point when you leave any kind of rehabilitation center. It's not only for people with drug and alcohol addictions or dependencies. It's for people who are working on their mental health, you know, actually CEOs, professionals, and so on, who are at a real tipping point in their lives. I think it could be really illuminating. It could help me break some habits and understand myself better. So we all have things in our lives where, unless we address them, you know, like it actually can really undermine our physical health as well as our mental health. And these things are important to me. So it's all about being responsible and self-accountable as well. So after all that spiel, and there might have been a thread or two that I just left by the wayside, and I'm sorry. I tend to do videos like this. I'm having a cup of tea. I hope you have a great night and a great weekend wherever you are. Let me know of your own experiences with, you know, adjuncts of or junctures of challenge in your life. If you've experienced burnout, if you've experienced difficulties in relationships that have burnt you. I mean, there's so many things that people experience, right? You're welcome to provide some comments and yeah, see if you relate to this video. Take care all, and press like and subscribe.